Although Eric Bischoff has always said that he wanted WCW to become more reality based during the ongoing evolution of WCW Nitro and WCW programming, he must have made a pretty big exception when it came to Glacier. The Glacier gimmick was obviously inspired by the Mortal Kombat game series, something that was seriously far away from reality, and in all honesty, no matter how cool the Glacier entrance was and all that, the character would have fit right in with WWF during their peak days of cartoony madness. In saying that, Glacier and his storylines were kept well away from the NWO angle that dominated WCW TV at the time. He didn't get involved with the Horsemen or the Dungeon of Doom, he didn't slot into the Cruiserweight division, so Glacier kind of had his own little thing going on in WCW as the company rose in popularity during 1996 and beyond. So in today's video, we will take a look at the man who portrayed the Glacier character, the storylines he was involved in, and we will also hopefully get a clear picture of why the Glacier character struggled during a time when WCW was firing on all cylinders. So let's have a quick look at Raymond Llyod, the man who portrayed Glacier in WCW. Llyod was born on May 13th, 1964 in Georgia, and his family were very deep in law enforcement. His father served as a commander with the Georgia State Patrol, his brother is a retired state trooper, and his mother worked in the Georgia Driver's License Division. Raymond and his brother were both fans of wrestling growing up. Raymond played football growing up, but was also extremely well versed in martial arts. In 1983, he began competing for the World Karate Association, going on to win the Southeastern Super Heavyweight title, but in 1985, the World Karate Association changed their rules to allow kicks below the waist and above the knee. Raymond did not want to jeopardise his football scholarship once these new rules came into play, so he decided to quit karate. Raymond would go on to play centre at Valdosta State, graduating in 1989 with a master's degree in education. Soon after graduation, Raymond began training to become a professional wrestler. Raymond trained under Fred Avery in Georgia before moving into the local independent scene. His ring name was Sugar Ray Lloyd, and he spent a good 2 years working smaller shows around the Georgia area. Unfortunately, information regarding these matches are pretty much non-existent. He did have a brief stint in WCW in 1989, and although all recorded matches here are losses, you can see that he worked against the likes of the Fabulous Freebirds, Sid Vicious, Kevin Sullivan, and even the Great Muta. Raymond ended up moving to Japan then to compete in the UWFI, a really interesting promotion that promoted worked shoot style matches. When the promotion folded, Raymond came back to the States and had a conversation with one Diamond Dallas Page. DDP has been credited as the man who set up a meeting between Raymond Llyod and Eric Bischoff. Eric, being a martial artist himself, saw value in Raymond. With the possibility of bringing a karate and wrestling hybrid style to WCW rings, Eric Bischoff signed Raymond to a full-time contract with World Championship Wrestling. Just briefly though, before getting into WCW, I should mention that Raymond also performed for All Star Wrestling in 1994, having matches with the likes of Rob Van Dam, Jake Roberts and Disco Inferno. Ray would work here as Sugar Ray Lloyd, and also he would work as the Punisher. So here we go, the introduction of Glacier. On the April 29th, 1996 edition of WCW Monday Nitro, a promo video played where we were told that blood will run cold in WCW and it would happen soon. Nothing was really given away here, it was mysterious, and credit to WCW also. I've always kind of liked these kind of mysterious TV promos, making us all guess and talk about the video. The WWE done extremely well with this kind of thing also, in particular the Save Us Y2J stuff that had people trying to find clues in the video. But anyway, yeah, this was the first promo video that aired in regards to Glacier. This very promo would air consistently for 4 weeks, and on the 5th week, another promo would air that gave us more information. On the 5th promo, the Glacier character was revealed while the Blood Runs Cold slogan still appeared in the vignette. On this very same episode of Nitro, Scott Hall made his debut and the New World Order angle kicked off in WCW, and this very NWO storyline would end up putting a halt to the Glacier debut. The arrival of the Outsiders in World Championship Wrestling really steered WCW in a new direction. Rivalries and feuds were stopped in some cases, the cards were shuffled in a big way, and it seemed like Glacier and the Blood Runs Cold stuff had no place in WCW during the genesis of the New World Order, and so the debut of Glacier was put on hold. The plan was for Glacier to debut in July of 1996, but he wouldn't show up until September that year. With the delay of Glacier's debut came a problem. WCW had already put the vignettes on TV after deciding to postpone the debut, but that didn't stop WCW from continuing to hype the arrival of Glacier. The promo videos were ramped up big time. Just type Glacier into the WWE Network search bar and the amount of hype videos you'll see is truly staggering. Eventually the vignettes would reveal the character, and yep, Glacier was pretty much a carbon copy of Sub-Zero from the Mortal Kombat video game series. There's nothing more to say, it was Sub-Zero, that's it. Bischoff's idea was to capitalise on the success of Midway's huge fighting game franchise by directly ripping off one of the game's most well-known characters, reality-based WCW. So all this hype would mean Glacier should debut on pay-per-view, right? Maybe a Clash of the Champions show? Perhaps WCW Nitro? No, and no. In a baffling booking decision, considering months of hype videos on WCW Nitro, Glacier made his debut on an episode of WCW Pro in a match against the gambler Jeff Gamble, jobber to the stars. A Nitro debut would have sufficed here, but no, WCW Pro got the honours. Now, in saying this, I personally believe that WCW Pro was selected in order to properly test the Glacier entrance before it made its way to bigger arenas and bigger shows. And really, this entrance was so grand that it needed a test run. It was truly a sight to behold. Sure, the Glacier entrance has been surpassed many times in the years that followed, but back here in 1996, this stuff was really good, and also it was really expensive. Also, just to let you know, some of these screen grabs that you're going to see here are from later Glacier matches. The footage of his WCW Pro debut is a little low in quality. But anyway, blue lasers would shoot out into the centre of the arena while snow would fall from above. Glacier would make his way into the ring where blue lights would surround him in the middle of the ring. It looked really cool as a Mortal Kombat theme rip-off played in the arena. Raymond said that WCW producer Keith Mitchell told him that the entire setup cost WCW around $400,000, with an additional $10,000 being paid every time he came to the ring in order to pay for 3 technicians to oversee the entrance each and every time. Glacier's entire outfit also reportedly cost $35,000. AFX Studios were responsible for the entrance lighting and effects, along with Glacier's entrance gear and ring attire. You may think that this was all way overdone for what essentially turned out to be a mid-card act, but AFX studio owner Andre Fortes explained that he was just trying to create the best entrance possible without any real concept of Glacier's place on the cards. Andre said, "Eventually I came up with the idea for the lasers and the snowfall and all the show because I'm thinking like a special effects movie guy. I'm not thinking like Ray's sort of a mid-card guy and I'm going to give him an Undertaker type entrance. I had no concept of that. I didn't know all the politics of wrestling. I'm thinking that I want to make my character as cool as possible, and Ray could never live up to the hype of what we provided." Glacier made his Nitro debut then on September 16th, 1996 in a winning effort against Big Bubba Rogers, a man who had been taunting Glacier weeks before his debut. The debut match wasn't bad at all, but you can totally tell Eric Bischoff was very eager to show off his martial arts expertise at the commentary table. He calls every kick and every sweep like he was Mr. Miyagi himself. The crowd was also pretty receptive of Glacier, even if they did have to sit through the match with this blue lighting in the arena. Following the debut, Glacier would win match after match, both on TV and at house shows, while staying in a fairly average spot on the cards. The NWO storyline dominated the upper portion of WCW shows, so Glacier would find a home in the mid-card. His first storyline came about in March of 1997, a long-running feud against Mortis, a character portrayed by Chris Kanyon. So, Mortis vs Glacier was booked for WCW Uncensored in 1997. All we really knew at this point was that Mortis knew Glacier long before the two got to WCW, and that was really it. People would compare Mortis to Reptile from Mortal Kombat simply because he wore a green outfit, while others would say that Mortis was like the Scorpion of the story, due to Glacier and Mortis sharing a past that really would never get revealed on WCW television, but a bit more on that later. Again, reality-based WCW, eh? Anyway, this match at Uncensored was billed as being contested under martial arts rules, which meant absolutely nothing. It was a normal wrestling match. Mortis, managed here by James Vandenberg, looked pretty damn cool in this outfit. I really like the look of Mortis, and what's more, Chris Kanyon himself was an incredibly capable pro wrestler. So these Glacier vs Mortis matches, I felt, were always fun, even if it was all very silly with the storyline. Glacier gets the win with a cryonic kick, and after the match, the Wrath character made his debut by joining forces with Mortis and Vandenberg and laying a beatdown to Glacier. Wrath was portrayed by Brian Clark, who you may remember as Adam Bomb in the WWF. So the feud now featured Glacier versus Mortis and Wrath, and the storyline itself had a name, Blood Runs Cold. The Blood Runs Cold tagline wasn't used since the early Glacier debut vignettes, but yeah, here it is once again. In the weeks that followed Uncensored, Mortis and Wrath would continue to attack Glacier, who was also still undefeated up to this point too. After one particular beatdown, Mortis and Wrath stole Glacier's sacred helmet, and at Slamboree 97, a rematch between Mortis and Glacier was set up in hopes that Glacier could retrieve the sacred artifact. During the match, Wrath once again interfered, but Glacier had some help in the form of Ernest the Cat Miller. Ernest Miller made his WCW debut here. The commentators said he was a fan before security rushed down to escort Miller away, but the Cat helped out Glacier while displaying some innovative offense of his own. Glacier then had a match against Wrath at the Great American Bash, which he won, but again he was beat down after the match. You can see what's happening here. It seemed like WCW didn't know where to go with this story. The next night on Monday Nitro, Ernest Miller again saved Glacier from another beatdown. Ernest Miller and Glacier would then become a tag team, and at Bash at the Beach 1997, Mortis and Wrath defeated the Cat and Glacier, giving Glacier his first loss. After this match, the whole Blood Runs Cold angle was promptly dropped, just like that. Nothing further was explained. We didn't find out the history between Mortis and Glacier. We didn't learn more about the Wrath and Mortis partnership. Nothing. Raymond Llyod said in a shoot interview with RF Video that WCW's creative team had no idea where the storyline should go. They never had a finish to the angle, and just like that, it was gone. On the 1st of September 1997, Glacier got handed his first singles loss from Buff the Stuff Bagwell, ending a near 12-month undefeated streak. Speaking of undefeated streaks, Bill Goldberg destroyed Glacier on the December 29th episode of Nitro. Glacier turned on Ernest Miller and turned heel, and with this he was shuffled to the very bottom of the match cards. His next big feud was against Perry Saturn in mid-1998, a feud that started when Glacier boasted that his cryonic kick was the most devastating move in wrestling, and he threatened to take out anyone who used the move. This started a series of matches between Glacier and Raven's Flock, but what's interesting here is that during this time, Chris Kanyon was also feuding with the Flock. At one point, when Kanyon assisted Glacier in a win against Saturn on WCW Thunder, he showed him the Mortis mask before leaving the ring. A knee injury suffered by Glacier though would once again put an end to this storyline. Llyod was put on the shelf after another match with Goldberg, this time for the US title on the June 29th episode of Nitro. When Glacier returned in early November of 1998, he still played a heel character. He even teamed up with Kanyon and Wrath briefly, but again, nothing came of it. Glacier would go on to work a match against Wrath at World War III 98, a match that he lost. So it was now all pretty much over for the Glacier character. He was booked to lose in the months that followed, and the character was retired from WCW television. Video skits aired on WCW Thunder that showed Glacier selling his ring gear, his helmet, and his mask to Ernest Miller, and that was it. Glacier was no more. Llyod returned in August of 1999 as Coach Buzz Stern, manager of Luther Biggs. Llyod only worked one match as Buzz Stern, a match that he lost to Eddie Guerrero on the November 4th episode of WCW Thunder. Raymond Llyod was then released from his WCW contract shortly after the Guerrero match as part of WCW's cost-cutting measures. Fast forward then to WCW's Mayhem pay-per-view in 2000, and the old Blood Runs Cold vignette airs during the show, only this time we are told that blood runs colder, whatever that means. The commentators laughed at the video, asking why on earth was WCW thinking of doing this again, so the character was getting buried before returning here. Glacier was used in Norman's Smiley matches. Glacier had promised Norman he would watch his back during his matches, but instead Glacier would pose with fans and arrive late to the ring when Norman needed help. He didn't wrestle at all during his brief return here, and he only stayed for a few weeks. Llyod left WCW 6 weeks before the WWF buyout. And so, in a nutshell, that was Glacier. Really, when you think about it, the character was maybe doomed from the start. The inspiration from a video game, the delay in introducing the character to the audience, a storyline that never had a middle nor an end, and the focus on WCW programming being on the New World Order, all of this just made things difficult for Raymond Llyod. In the ring, the guy was actually pretty good. He had a unique moveset that separated him from the dozens of other average Joes in WCW, but without proper planning and direction, it was never going to work. Glacier is remembered though for the Mortal Kombat inspired character he portrayed on screens, and not so much his unique wrestling style in the ring, which is kind of a shame, but it's understandable too. The gimmick definitely overshadowed the wrestling when it came to Glacier.